Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Collaboration Design with G Suite, Securing Your Data. I'm going to turn it over to Mike to get us started.
Thank you, Dave. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mike. I'm a Google Cloud and G Suite consultant here at Worsta. And I also have our Director of Support, Charles Kramer, on the webinar with me today. Over the next half hour, we will be discussing how you can leverage G Suite to better secure your data and enhance your overall data security posture. So here at Worsta, we really see data security as an integral component of your overall G Suite architecture, and it plays a significant role in shaping an organization's collaborative processes as well. Worsta takes data security into consideration on every aspect of collaboration design. Whether your organization has a strategic business opportunity like adapting to new environments, innovating in the marketplace, reducing costs, or increasing collaboration, or perhaps you're solving for specific business use cases like increasing productivity, reducing licenses, or more to this subject, really increasing security or solving for shadow IT, our collaboration design team will partner with you to provide advisory services, help you implement G Suite, really transform your legacy business processes to optimize new tools and help you innovate. And it's all done with an eye toward keeping your data and your users secure. Before we dive into the security, we do just want to take a quick look at G Suite. G Suite is what can help you achieve those goals. It's not just the popular communication and productivity apps you know and love like Gmail, Doc Sheets, Slides, and Drive. It's also everything you need to have a productive, high-fidelity video meeting, enterprise-grade telephony, the power of Google Search with Cloud Search, and also everything you need to keep it secure. With secure, intuitive apps that were built for the cloud from the beginning, G Suite is the future, and it's helping people reimagine work with an eye to security. These days, companies are relying on new processes and innovation more than ever. Work is truly no longer a place you go, but rather a thing you do wherever you happen to be. Remote work, flexible work. In the past, these have been perks or buzzwords. Really pre-COVID, we really only saw 4% of US workers regularly working from home. And then in just a matter of months, it's become a necessity. We saw millions of businesses sprint to stand up their remote workforce. Now during the crisis, companies are starting to realize the potential benefits of remote work and are considering continuing with remote work for a subset, if not all of their users after the crisis fades. So as remote work becomes the new normal, it's critical that companies have the right tools in place to enable their remote teams to be more productive and collaborative while maintaining high standards for data security. So today we're talking about data security, and we're going to talk about what it is. And that's really your data loss prevention tools for Gmail and Drive. It's shared drives where all of your data is owned by your organization, and it's access controls for your Drive data. And we're also going to touch on what it does. And really, it protects your users from attacks in the form of phishing, spoofing, or malware scams. It protects company data from accidental or intentional misuse, sharing, or deletion of intellectual property or sensitive data. And it allows your admins to configure secure access and set specific permissions for company data. I'm sure you may be thinking, okay, that's great. Of course, we all want to protect our data, but what exactly are we protecting it from? So that brings us to really the most common ways that data is compromised. First and foremost is external exfiltration. External exfiltration is what you hear about in the news. It's a big data breach at Target, at Equifax, or Facebook. And it's definitely going to make the headlines while also causing numerous repercussions for the organization who experienced the breach. Possibly even more damaging is the subsequent loss of trust with their customers, their partners, and their clients. These headline-making data breaches are most often of the external exfiltration where a hacker targeted the organization, actively working to steal their data. This is often accomplished through phishing or spoofing scams that are used to gain trust and ultimately gain access to a company's data. The next aspect is the internal exfiltration. It's a little less well publicized, yet it's actually more commonplace. The internal exfiltration comes in the form of possibly the disgruntled employee who's leaving for a competitor and looking to take a little intellectual property with them. It's a much more widespread issue than some realize, and it's simply too easy to email client list or confidential information to a personal account, or in the case of G Suite, to share folders or documents with a personal account. And while this data loss may not be on the 6 o'clock news, the effects can be just as devastating. We're also going to touch on encryption. By sending mail and data that lacks encryption, you're really exposing your data and making it subject to hijacking and what is known as man-in-the-middle attacks. And then we're also going to touch on access control. Without the proper access control for your data, your confidential information can be accessed and shared at will by anyone in your organization. Unfettered access creates a much larger attack surface for both internal and external exfiltration of your data. And then the final thing here is deletion. Deletion, I'd say that's pretty straightforward. It's often an inside job, so to speak. Whether it's done intentionally or accidentally, it's nice to have some recourse and the ability to retrieve your data. So now let's take a look at how we can secure your data against these various threats. The nice thing is G Suite's got your back. There's no need to configure hardware appliances or add on additional third-party software to ensure that your data is secure. With G Suite, you can protect against internal exfiltration by utilizing shared drives and further locking down access with permission controls. You can build out standard or custom data loss prevention rules to further restrict the sharing of sensitive data or confidential data, which protects against both internal and external exfiltration threats. And then in addition to locking down your drive documents, you can also apply data loss prevention rules for your inbound, outbound, and even internal email communications. So if a hacker runs a good phishing or spoofing scam and convinces Karen in accounting that he really is the CEO and he really does need everyone's social security numbers, Gmail DLP rules can stop Karen's email in its tracks and never allow that highly confidential email to get out into the world. And then finally, with data loss prevention rules for mobile devices, the protection of your company's data is extended to an employee's cell phone, whether it's their personal cell phone or a company-owned device. Now, to really better understand how G Suite security works and even get a look at what it looks like, I'm going to toss things over to our Director of Support, Charles Kramer. Charles?
Thank you very much, Mike. So here at Worsta, when we're thinking about security and from our customer's perspective, there's sort of three major bins. There's how do I prevent things from happening in the first place? If they're happening, how can I detect them? And then in either case, how can I remediate? So how can I stop it from happening in the first place? How do I detect it and how to remediate? With Google, they allow you to, with one easy, and in some cases pre-built templates, they help you take control of the DLP rules and the safety controls. And with just one template, if you go to the next slide here, you're able to manage both the detection and remediation automatically using G Suite services. So without having people go in and make changes to these documents or retract emails, Google will automatically take action. So let's look at this in action. If I'm in my security center, I can go into my data protection module. From there, I can select an individual pre-built DLP rule. So here, we're going to select the prevent PII information sharing in the US. So Mike, if you click, you can highlight that. Yep, and so we'll just click right on that box. When we click on that box, you're going to come in and you're going to see a pre-built rule. You're going to notice there's already a name filled in and a description. If you're creating your own rule, we want you to make sure that you've created a template for everyone in your organization for naming so that it's clear what rules are for and how they're applied. And then also be sure to make that your IT department is adding descriptive information so I don't have to go all the way inside the rule to understand what it's trying to accomplish. The next step here is we're going to decide who the rule will or will not apply to. Currently, we're restricted to OU, So before implementing DLP rules, you may want to consider and potentially make some changes to how your tenants' organizational units are structured. We, Worsta, can actually help with discovery and implementation of DLP OU related changes should you need it. Okay, so I click on continue from the screen, and what am I going to see? Well, we're going to have to determine when and to what services DLP is going to be applied. Google Drive files, in this case, are being scanned after they're modified. And Gmails, we can choose between, do we want it when emails come into our inboxes or only when we send out? By default, Drive and messages sent from Gmail will be checked. A lot of times people aren't that concerned about the reception of email, but you can always make sure to check that as well. The next section here, we're going to start determining what defines a violation of DLP. We'll decide whether a set of rules needs to be matched or if any individual rule within some set is important to us. For each rule, we can use a predefined set of matches or create custom matches. So I can say, Google has put together a set of rules that generally match social security numbers, or maybe I would want to define my own word. Here, because we're working off a template, Google has already provided a set of default detectors. Where you see very likely on the right-hand side of any one of those bins, what that is doing is it's referring to the sensitivity. So oftentimes, if you are already in a production environment, what you'll want to do is you'll want to start with that sensitivity rating as very likely. What that does is it reduces false positives that could interrupt your workplace. And then as you go through time, what you want to do is ratchet up those settings so you're capturing more and more instances of DLP. And at some point, you're going to want to find a balance between keeping data safe and allowing your users to work unimpeded. And Worst, of course, can help you with that. The last item in the third row of the rule that I'm pointing at here would be thresholds. So maybe I don't care if a credit card is shared or a social security number, but if there's 5, maybe I care if there's 5 or more. So that's what we would set there. Okay, so now we've defined what and to whom and where and for what context DLP is going to be applied. Now we have to tell the system what actions we want to have taken. So in the first section here, we can determine for Google Drive that files are blocked, or is a warning given to the user, or do we disable download, print, and copy? For mail, we would determine things like, do we want to reject the message, modify its path, or quarantine the message? The next section that we're pointing to now is content highlighting. With content highlighting, and actually it's back one. With content highlighting, what we're doing, enabling this will allow your users to understand as they violate DLP that they've violated DLP. Why is that helpful? It helps them understand how they modify their message in order for it to be delivered correctly, or their document. It also reduces the amount of support tickets you're going to have, right? Somebody's going to say, oh, I sent this email and the recipient never got it. Why did this happen? Now your IT department has to investigate what happened to that message, potentially go to InfoSec. With content highlighting, they're going to have instant feedback about violations and be able to avoid those, or contact IT before it's a problem. Finally, Michael, if you click one more time, we have the alerting section. So who are we going to warn? Super administrators, particular individuals, maybe you have teams related to just this type of DLP incident. And then how do we want to record it? Each incident is going to be recorded as low, medium, or high inside of our alert log, which we'll look at later. Next slide, please. Finally, you're going to see an overview of your rule, and all you have to do is click create. That's on the bottom right-hand corner. And once that is done, we've already protected our domain against internal and external DLP potential exfiltrations. Next slide. Once you've created DLP, it's gonna bring you back to your dashboard. So from here, you and your IT teams will be able to review those rules that you have in place, whether they're active or inactive. So I wanted to review quickly with you some of the other things you can do from these data protection rules. If you click into the rule that we just created, and we'll go to the next slide here, Mike. What you're going to see is an overview of the rule. And if you're on Enterprise, you'll be able to use the investigation tool. And you'll see that that is linked on the left-hand side. And so if we were to click on that link, we'll see the next screen that Mike is going to show us here. So from our investigation tool, we can work, and your IT teams can work collaboratively. You can dive deep into these investigations. You can create pivots out of this data. You can take retroactive action. If there have been several of these rules and we need to make sure that you were just warned, maybe you want to retract permissions on those files. You can do that easily from this one place. However, it may be that you're not on Enterprise. What could we do on Business? We go to the next slide. Oh, it looks like that slide wasn't brought over, but that's okay. There's also an alert center. And from the alert center, you can manage the various different DLP incidents and have team managers go in and say, you know, this alert was taken care of and this one's still in progress. And so you'll have a nice manager just through the alert center, which is available at the security center. And if you want to know more, Mike and I are happy to get on a call and show you that. So let's go to the next slide, Mike. Just a little quick preview of what it looks like for your users. If you look in that top right-hand corner, you'll notice that that's what it, you know, as I type in sensitive information and go to send the email, it's going to stop me in my tracks and say, oh, look, you're violating a DLP rule. In particular, you've included a social security number. And then if you were to try to send that email, provided your settings are to block, your users will receive the feedback, hey, you violated this DLP rule, and so your message has been rejected. So overall, DLP rules are you can create them to prohibit the sharing of sensitive data. Based on those rules, you can detect and identify data loss threats. Once you've detected it, G Suite Security will help you remediate threats automatically or manually using the tool sets that are provided. And for those of you on Enterprise or interested in Enterprise, the investigation tool is going to let you take a manual approach to remediating when there have been data losses or potential data losses. With that, I'll hand it back over to Mike.
Thank you, Charles. I appreciate you taking us through that and showing us sort of a live look into how to create these rules. You know, I think my favorite thing about the Security Center and data loss prevention is it's more of a proactive service. You know, you're doing a lot of configuration up front. You're building the templates, you're building out the rules, but then you can rely on Google's AI and ML to dial in and find the right content and really remediate it and detect it automatically, which is takes a lot of the onus off of your IT team and frees them up for more proactive initiatives. So I do just want to sort of wrap it up. I know a lot of you have been joining us for our entire webinar series. We've gone over remote collaboration, remote meetings, Google Drive in real time, and today we're touching on securing your data. Tomorrow we'll be coming back with securing your users. And then next week we have employee portals and chat, as well as collaboration design with Worsta on Tuesday the 23rd. And again, if you have any questions whatsoever regarding DLP rules, how to configure them, the optimal configuration for your organization, please do reach out to Charles and I. We are more than happy to jump on a quick Google Meet or a phone call and discuss that with you and help you implement the right solution for your organization. Now, I do want to turn it over to questions. I did see a few coming in. Looks like we have one here. Is there anything new coming out for the Security Center? I have some limited knowledge here. I'll speak to this, and Charles, feel free to add anything as well. You know, I know that Google's always innovating. They're always adding new features, new things, and also enhancing their security stance. I am excited about one thing, and that is I've heard that we are going to have DLP for Chrome browser. I don't have any sort of release date, but I believe that's sort of the next big thing for DLP. And then I know they're also adding OAuth and Chrome as data sources for the investigation tool and the security center. But yeah, those are the two that come to mind on my end.
Yeah, that's right. And Google on the enterprise side is also adding the ability to do document fingerprinting, which is sort of the next step for a lot of security and DLP services. And the idea with document fingerprinting is when you have sensitive content, a lot of times there are key indicators that you're setting in your DLP rule to identify that content. And so if I was a sly individual, I could change certain keywords or change numbers in a way that I know the detectors aren't going to pick up. But if I am protecting documents, a certain set of documents, Google can understand the context of the document and understand when the context is generally the same. And so they're working currently on rolling out the ability to say, I see what's happened here. The document has just changed slightly, but it is still sensitive information. They're also, Mike, you may remember this, they're rolling out metadata for Drive. And so they're going to integrate that into DLP. And so you're going to be able to say things like, these are, you'll be able to mark documents as maybe tax documents. And then because they're marked with that tax metadata, they'll automatically fall under certain DLP rules. So Google understands, so Google understands this is a big area of need, particularly since businesses are going virtual and are pushing hard in this area.
Yeah, and it sounds like the metadata tagging would also sort of streamline some of the custom configuration to, again, free up more time for the IT admin, which I think any ad like, right?
Yeah. Well, and the reverse side too, it's going to say, oh, this document looks like it has interesting content, and it'll be able to tag documentation as, for example, tax information based on what's in the document. So there's going to be a lot of really nice integrations there.
Excellent. Lots of exciting stuff coming for the Security Center. I don't see any other questions coming in. We'll give a few more seconds here. And if anyone has questions, please get those posted, and then we'll be wrapping it up here momentarily. Okay, Charles, I'm not seeing anybody else, any other questions, so I think we'll be cutting it off here. Everyone, thank you very much for your time today. We hope that you found this informative, and hopefully you got some good takeaways from this. And again, if you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to reach out to Charles and I at your convenience. Have a great day.